I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBM, we're joined by one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite guests. His name is RobertESpekman, and he's here to talk about my journey with Parkinson's disease. It is a powerful memoir about resilience, coping, and personal transformation. Diagnosed back in 1995, the author shares what it really looks like to move from denial and depression to acceptance while building a healthier, more intentional life. This is an inspiring story of hope, mindset, and practical tools that can help anyone facing a life-changing diagnosis or adversity. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Robert, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Happy to have you on the show. Take us back to January 1995 and the day you got the diagnosis.
Oh my God. It was like I was slapped in the face very, very hard. I had shown symptoms for about a year before I was diagnosed. And it was such that I hadn't realized that I had the disease. In fact, after I was diagnosed, it's a visual exam. The neurologist had me walk down the hall, walk back, and she said, I've got some bad news for you. You have Parkinson's disease. And I said, no MRI, no lab work or anything. And she said, no, it's a visual exam. Then I asked if I might be the head of the department who was on the floor that day. He just had me walk for Jeff, you've got Parkinson's. I didn't know what the disease was like. I went home at 11 o'clock that morning. My wife was home. I let her know I had this disease, and then an hour and a half later, I was on an airplane to Europe for a week and a half of consulting and writing with a colleague who I never told that I had the disease because I felt that it would be too much of a burden for him. I didn't know anything about it. So I came back. I said, I started reading about the disease. I asked my docs how long I'd have, and they never answered the question, which in reality was very smart of them because I've had the disease for 32 years. And that's a long time. It just knocked the wind right out of me. I wouldn't let anybody know that I had the disease for a number of years. I wasn't back. I felt that I was at the top of my life. I was making a lot of money as a consultant, which I thought would stop because who would hire somebody who was shaking? And, I wanted to make money while the sun shone. I don't know, like make hay while the sun shines. Whatever that saying goes. And I wanted to make sure that I left my family with enough money because I didn't know how long I'd have. In fact, I became self-absorbed, and I was not fun to be around. I neglected my family. I focus internally. Sorry about that. That's my dog. And it was just an awful experience. I'd say that I'd hurt my elbow playing racket, and it was just an awful experience. I was in denial. I felt somebody else lived inside of me who had the disease, and I'd fight it and rid myself, and that didn't work because I had the disease. There wasn't anybody who lived inside of me. Um, you know, it was just an awful every year. In fact, I was the only one at the garden school who didn't know I had Parkinson because everybody else, you could observe my handshake and you knew that there was something wrong with me. And I'd hide my hands. When I write on the blackboard, my hand became very, very small, which is one of the symptoms. In fact, my handwriting now is almost illegible. And I say to my students, I'm sorry that I write small, but I can't spell, so you'd never be able to tell the difference. I make light of it.
Yeah.
I stopped writing on the blackboard, which was unusual for a professor at the darn school because half their mark was dependent on class participation. And if you wrote on a comment that the name went on the board, they'd feel, wow, something, it was important enough to go on the blackboard, So then after a while, I admitted to myself after I've been Catholic for a while that I have a high need for control. And here I had no control over my actions, which really upset me a lot. And I retired in 2014, which means and I didn't want the Parkinson to be the reason why I retired. My docs were able to keep me healthy enough that it wasn't the reason why I retired. In fact, now my speech has gotten worse, which is the major aspect of the illness. The way it manifests itself in me, and that just annoyed the hell out of me because I used to make my living by speaking.
Right.
And now I hesitate a lot when I talk. And I don't like that at all. And there's nothing I can do about it. Because when I had the operation in my head, they stuck the electrodes near my speech center. So that is affecting my speech. But if you look, I've always had a slight stutter. But now it's bad. But once I learned that feeling, I've become a more compassionate individual,
Mm.
uh, less angry, less um, annoyed with others. I used to suffer fools very uh, not very well.
Mm.
I was arrogant. Uh, I felt that I had the world by the balls, and here I am a much more mellow individual.
Mm.
Um, and I think that it not only will help those who have illnesses, but the caretakers also
Mm.
will have a better idea of what their loved ones are going through.
Yeah.
I've stopped using the car, which was very hard for me. That was the hardest decision that I had to make. I hadn't been behind the wheel of a car for 5 years,
Mm.
and I'm dependent on others to get around, and I just hate that dependency,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
But
It's been a lot of frustration. That's probably the primary emotion, anger and frustration that you can't do what you want to do.
that's right.
Um, and that's very understandable. I think when most people have a brush with illness, have a diagnosis, have a chronic ailment or disease, the fact that they can't be who they once were is so frustrating. Um, and acceptance has to come along at one point, and you've accepted, for the most part, um, what's happened to you and making the most of your life. And by writing this book, I think it's a great gift to others because to a lot of people, Parkinson's disease is a mystery. They know Michael J. Fox is basically the face of it nowadays,
Mhm.
but it impacts a lot of people, a lot of lives, and in a lot of different ways, right?
There are 60,000 folks diagnosed each year. And there are 3 million of us who have the disease, more than have MS, more than have ALS. It's Michael Fox is really done a hell of a job.
Mm.
I respect him a lot. He's made the illness much more noticeable. And I remember when Rush Limbaugh made a comment about Michael J. Fox, which was a very nasty comment. And that just pissed me off big time. Um, because living with this illness is it's tough.
Yeah.
My wife is very protective of me. She won't let me get out of matter. Somebody,
Hmm.
sorry about that, but
Oh, no worries, no worries. We're about out of time, so let me remind the folks at home the name of the book. The name of the book is My Journey with Parkinson's Disease. It's a moving reminder that even a devastating diagnosis can become a path towards strength, clarity, and hope. Robert, thank you so much for joining me here today.
you will do.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and your candor in sharing your story and, uh, and your goal and your drive to help others as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.